Take your mind into the wonderful world of physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kinetic Hour. Conversations with you and guests. With your host, Kenan, Wesley, Mason. That's me. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening and watching. This is the Kinetic Hour. This is the premiere episode, take two actually, because last week we made an attempt to do our premiere episode last week on October 31st, but we had some technical difficulty, and so we are doing this again live. This time on Facebook. Last week we tried to do Instagram Live, and again, we had some technical difficulty. But I welcome all of you to the premiere episode of the Kinetic Hour. I'm happy to be doing this. It's been a long time. It's been about 5.5 years since I've been on any type of platform where I can freely express and talk about different things. As you can see on my right or your left, or however you're looking at your screen, you can see my mother on the side there. She is the host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, which airs every Sunday on Facebook Live at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, because she is in Texas. That's where she resides. She'll be out here in California in the next week or so. She'll be out here for a couple of months, so she'll be broadcasting from where I sit right now. So that'll be fun. We'll be doing some shows together. But I wanted to do this specific show, kind of like an Aim to Purpose, the radio show reunion, because we did do a radio show for 3.5 years, or for about 3 years, in Hollywood, right across from Universal Studios, which was a great experience. And we got a chance to interview some wonderful people that you may know from all walks of life, from all over the world. And I got to learn quite a bit from all of our guests. So I'm really happy to be in this position to where I can continue in that mold. And now that we're in a new technological era, Facebook, Instagram, podcasting is the new thing. And I'm glad that I'm able to bring my voice to all of you. And I couldn't think of a better first guest to have than award-winning author, motivational speaker. She is the author of award-winning book, A Hill to Climb, a teenager's battle with drug addiction and depression, or depression and drug addiction. And she's here. She is my mother. She is Louise Hicks. And welcome to the premiere episode of the Kinetic Hour.
And thank you for having me. I am excited to be here.
Thank you.
Because it is a reunion, because we enjoyed that show too. Like you said, Aim to Purpose, the radio show out in Hollywood. We would go into the studio and talk to guests. Some in the house with us, some via Skype at the time. That's what we were doing. And it was exciting because we had guests of all ethnicities from all over the world, as can even some of the countries. We had Canada, the UK, South Africa, Brazil, of course, the United States. And it was exciting. And I learned a lot too from our guests that we had on the show, because we opened it up to speak about so many different things. So it was exciting. And we went on a hiatus, and I came back this year in January. This was my startup of my new podcast. And Ken said 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 Central, because I'm in Texas here, but I'll be in California next week, and I'll be doing the show there after this week or sometime thereafter. And sometimes we don't always come on at 1 o'clock. It depends, because sometimes 1 o'clock Central, I should say. Sometimes we have guests, and they may not be able to be on at the time, but it's usually around that time. And if not, I will let you know if it's not at that time. So thank you for having me, and being on here with you is like old times.
It is like old times, and
And
the time.
congratulations too.
Oh,
Congratulations on starting your own podcast.
thank
Very
you.
proud of you.
Well, it's been a long time coming, and it's been something that I've been wanting to do for a while. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. There's a lot of things going on right here in America. And the first thing that I wanted to start with is tomorrow is election day. And so there's a lot of talk on the news about many different um, races, political races that are occurring right now, whether it be for the Senate or whether it be for governorship of certain states. But the election is tomorrow for those that go out and vote. I think there's been a record number of people that have voted early. For those that have had access to vote early, record numbers of people voting. My only thing is, and my question always is, will this make any difference in policy changes? Or will this create some sort of policy change that will affect not only the people, but us specifically as Black or African people here in America? We have so many different races going on right now. I'll just mention a few of them. The big one probably is the one in Georgia right now, which we have a governor race with Stacey Abrams, who is coming back to try to win this election a second go round. She's going against the incumbent, which is Brian Kemp. And also, for those that have been watching the race and also the debates, people in Georgia know that there's actually a third candidate, libertarian by the name of Shane Hazel. So, and I think it's actually great that there is a third party running in any of these races, because for so long it's been pretty much what Ralph Nader used to call, or probably still does to this day, the two-party dictatorship, which is what we know as the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. These are the two political parties that have pretty much been running the show for the last 175 years. And we see what the results have been from their leadership, because we keep voting them in office over and over and over and over and over again. But then at the end of the day, we keep complaining on all the things that they're not doing, all the things that they complain about during their campaign race, all the things that they said they were going to do on day one, all the things that they claim that they're going to do within the first 100 days. It seems to the flip-flop seems to be the common denominator with many politicians. And if anybody's been watching the debates, we see a common denominator, especially with the Republican Party, because it seems like they will not deviate from the standard party line. I don't want to say rhetoric, but the standard talking points. The standard talking points, whether it's about the border and how horrible the border patrol is and how wide open it is for all these Mexican criminals that are just flooding into the United States, taking over. But I see something that should be alarming to all those that claim that the people are coming across the border so freely. We just had a Canadian immigrant come in and attack Speaker of the House husband, Paul Pelosi. And we're finding out that this is a man that's not from Mexico. He's from Canada. He is an illegal immigrant. He's not legal here in the United States. And he has, looks like he's been the violent one when the narrative has been that predominantly Mexican people are coming over here creating violence. They're the drug dealers, they're the criminals, they're the rapists. But it seems that this person that attacked the husband of the Speaker of the House, he's not Mexican. He's not Mexican. He didn't even cross the Canadian border. He came all the way here to cross the California Mexican border and then traveled north to Northern California to attack the husband of the Speaker of the House, who is the third person in line to the presidency if something were to happen to President Joe Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris. So it's kind of amazing that we see the hypocrisy of no one's really talking about this specific person, and that includes Fox News. All this week and all last week, we hardly heard anything about the suspect or the attacker of Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi. And I think his name is, oh gosh, what is his name? His name is David DePape, a Canadian resident. He's Canadian. And he is in custody right now. And I believe he has a court hearing coming up pretty soon. So what is your take on that? The hypocrisy of the narrative that the horrible, scary Mexican people are coming over in droves, attacking people here in America. But we have this Canadian person over here that attacked the husband of the Speaker of the House, not a Mexican person, a Canadian person. What's your take on that?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, with all the stuff that we've heard about illegal immigrants, I find it very disturbing and alarming to me that it is a lot of hypocrisy within our country when it comes to illegal immigrants. And I say that because I recall back several months ago when the Haitians were attempting to come over, they were rounding them up with whips. And other immigrants come over here, and sometimes you don't hear anything. Prime example, in California, we did hear about it one time, and I don't know whether you recall that, Kenan. There were several Asians in the city of, I believe I want to say it was Alhambra, that were coming over to have their babies here, to be citizens. And I found it disturbing that we only talk about pretty much one ethnic group of immigrants for the most part, but there are a multitude of immigrants coming into this country from all over the world. It's not just Mexico, it's all over the world. So there is a lot of hypocrisy, and everybody knows it. It's just that the focus probably maybe is on Mexico because it's right next to the borders of Texas and California. But that's hypocrisy when you have other ethnicities flooding into the country too. And it's all over, from all over the world. But it's very little talk about it. And that's pretty hypocritical of our country when we only focus on one ethnic group. And I'm not condoning anybody that's coming over to the country illegally. And I just was disturbed when the Haitians, how they treated them when they came over. Some are treated with kid gloves, and they were treated with whips, rounding up like cattle. And it was not right. And that's my take on it. It is hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's hypocrisy. It's almost like that the Mexican border is the only border here in the United States. People have been coming here to the United States. We're talking since the days of World War II, when we had um, hundreds of thousands of people come here from Europe after the war to get away from war-torn countries and cities
Oh, yes.
that were bombed to high heaven, and that includes Germany and Poland and parts of Japan that was bombed by the United States with the atom bomb. So we know what happened with that. But the narrative that only Mexican people are the ones to be fearful of, because coming over here across our border to create opportunity for themselves in America, that doesn't sound like America to me, because I thought everyone was supposed to be welcomed to have opportunity as long as they go through the right channels to do
Right.
so.
And they don't, but only certain people are targeted when they come over here. And the thing that when we talk about voting, I even heard that there are some states that were working on allowing illegal immigrants to vote. So if they're not, you don't want them to come here legally, what is it about allowing the vote? Is there some other agenda with the voting? So it's just America, there is a lot of hypocrisy. And when you talk about criminals, um, it's interesting because when you look at the incarceration rate, who's the most incarcerated in America? You have to think
Well,
about it. Black people are the most incarcerated in America, and the next most likely is probably Hispanic, Latinos, but the most incarcerated in America happens to be uh, Black people. And I find that ironic too, because we know all crime or most crimes are not committed by Black people, but they get the most harsh sentences. I should say, get the most harsh sentences, whereas other people sometimes just get a slap on the hand. So that's why you see so many more, from my perspective, of Black people in terms of being incarcerated. And as far as the voting is concerned, I did cast my vote. However, I am really disappointed in the Democratic Party that we as Black people have been enslaved to for decades. And that's a disappointment, because when you look around and you see these people have been in office, some of them for 10, 20, 30 years, and what have they done specifically for Black people? But yet, as soon as it's time for election, they are flocking to the Black communities, the Black churches, and anywhere that they can get a congregation of Black people, and they're encouraging us to vote for them. And I saw the hypocrisy in that as well, which is why back over 30 years ago, I became an independent voter, because I just could not sit back and keep giving my vote to the Democrats, and I didn't see them doing anything specifically for Black people. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, because if you're a politician, you should be working for all of Americans. And I do understand that. However, when you see specific policies being changed for other ethnicities, but you don't do any policy changes specifically for Black people, that's disturbing. And the thing is, we need to start demanding from these people uh, some type of policy changes for us, because if you don't, Why do you keep voting for them? And I'll give you an example of that. Reparations. There's a task force in California, and it's leading the way. And it was a rally this past weekend in Washington, D.C., spearheaded by uh, Tariq Nasheed. And they had Dr. Boyce Watkin there, and I can't recall all of the prominent Black people that are out here fighting for reparations. And Black people have never been even, it's not even spoken of by some of the presidents we've had. And particularly, I don't recall President Obama ever mentioning the word reparations. If he did, my apologies, because I missed it. And our ancestors built this country with their blood, sweat, and tears, suffering atrocities, rapes, castrations, mutilations, all kinds of atrocities. And other people are given reparations. And that's so sad. And they're getting policies. Other specific ethnicities or groups of people are getting policy changes to benefit them. And there's nothing wrong with that. But where are the policy changes to benefit Black people? And we have to accept accountability and responsibility for that as well. Because when you demand nothing, you get nothing. However, it's up to us to stop voting these people in office. Why are you voting them in office if you don't see anything specifically for you, when you can see specific policies for others? For an example, when and like I said, nobody should be harassed, abused, killed, any of that. But when this mishap was with the killings of the Asian people, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they signed an executive order. And from my understanding, that was approved specifically for Asian people. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad it happened, because nobody should be shooting anybody and killing people, innocent people. However, where is the executive order for the Black people that have been getting shot, whether it's by another Black person, because there is Black on Black crime, just like it's other crimes too. And there is this police shootings of Black people. And in my lifetime, being 72, I have never, ever seen the police shootings of other ethnicities like I have of Black people, particularly Black men. And that's a hypocrisy in America. So you want us to vote and give you our vote. What are you going to do specifically to stop some of this that happens to Black people? What are you going to do about reparations that's been given to other ethnicities, or whatever policy changes? And the state of California, I'm happy to say now, is leading the way. And I understand that Governor Newsom has also participated. And so I believe the Secretary of State, I can't recall her name right now, she is for reparations. And there was a gentleman running in South Carolina, and he lost to Clyburn, I can't remember his first name. But from my understanding, this man has been in office for, I believe, 30 some years. And from what I hear, because I know Black people that live in South Carolina, they used to live in California, they don't even know anything that he's done for them specifically and promoting any kind of policies, but yet they keep voting for him. So we have to accept accountability and responsibility for doing our due diligence, because how do you expect to get anything if you demand nothing? And that's where I see the changes now. And I'm happy to say that we're doing our due diligence, some of us now, and I'm glad to see that. Don't just vote to be voting. Vote for something of substance that's going to not only benefit everybody in the society, but things that will benefit your community as well, because that's what other ethnicities do.
And I'll also say, don't, for us as Black folk here in America, don't vote for anyone just because they're Black.
Absolutely.
That could be one of the worst things that you can do for us as a culture, because all Black people are not created equal. Um,
True.
and we see that in this election run right now. Again, if you go back to Georgia, and it's kind of sad that this is the case right now. We have one race that some people just refuse to not talk about. It's Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock and his opponent, former NFL football star Herschel Walker.
Hershey.
Um, I think the general consensus is that Herschel Walker has literally been put up to be the puppet as people play marionette and pull move the strings back and forth. Um, I think from what I've seen over the last 2 to 3 weeks, actually for the last couple of months, this has been the case with Herschel Walker, who pretty much says the same talking points at every rally that he goes to. It's pretty much Joe Biden. Raphael Warnock has voted for Joe Biden 96% of the time. He has talked himself into believing that he did such the great job at their one and only debate. Like he just like knocked the whole thing out of the ballpark. And anybody that saw that debate knows that that was not the case. That was
Well,
not the case.
he had his badge, remember? So he
Right.
thought the badge would, I guess, get him over to where he needed to be. And one other thing too that I wanted to talk about, I know some people choose not to vote, and some say, and I've been hearing this being 72, I've been hearing this ever since I've been old enough to vote, and I vote for the most part. I may have missed one or two elections or something like that over my years since I've been 18 and old enough to vote. And for whatever reason, I don't even recall. It's been so long ago, some of them, but I know um, I don't condone, or I don't, uh, what's the word? I don't belittle anybody, for lack of a better terminology, because they don't vote. And I think a lot of the reason a lot of people have become apathetic about voting is for the same reason we're talking about, because they don't see anything that they have gotten, and they have voted and been dedicated. Democrats, Black people with Democrats particularly, and a lot of time because they're Black, you bet, yeah, I'm going to vote for you, like what you just said. And some people have, because I've been told and heard this over and over and over. Well, you don't have a voice. You can't say anything. You shouldn't complain if you don't vote. I don't agree with that. And the reason I don't is because what about the freedom of speech and expression, which it seems to be uh, the way things are going now? We don't even have the constitutional right to express ourselves and to have that freedom of speech. So if a person chooses not to vote, that's their business, and who they vote for, to me, is their business. However, I feel they still should have a voice and they can complain. And the reason being, these people are paying taxes to take care of our educational system, our healthcare system, these corporations that get all these perks from the government. What others? And I know I had a comment about that today with someone saying that. And I just wholeheartedly can't agree that you don't have a voice when you are participating in other ways to carry our economy here in America. So therefore, you should have a voice. And it's wrong to me, from my perspective, to tell people, well, you don't have a right to complain because you didn't vote. I've heard it so many times during my lifetime, and I just don't agree with that, because you are participating in other ways. And the people that have voted, particularly us as Black people, for the Democrats, why are you still out here struggling and fighting if your vote has been so important? Tell me that. When you can answer that question for me, and then I'll say, well, maybe you got a point.
Well, especially after all the struggle that we had to go through just to get the right to vote. Um, I mean, women didn't get the right to vote until 1920. I mean,
Right.
and who made that rule that predominantly Caucasian women could not vote until 1920? And who were the elected officials at that time? It wasn't us. It wasn't us. We're talking about Caucasian men that were running the show in America at that time, and they didn't even want their own mothers and sisters to vote. So, what does that say about how we've been treated and all the crap that we had to go through? We had to have dogs sicked on us, the
Oh, yes.
hoses, the water hoses, and everything just to get an equal seat at the table. Um, in America, in America.
Yes, and
And
I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of it. I remember as a kid when there were colored and white water fountains, and my mother told us we're not going to drink from those fountains because if we're not good enough to have a fountain that we can drink from, she said, no, I'm not going to have you going over there. And it's not so much because I went to a segregated school, and it's not so much that we felt that we didn't, that we wanted to be in these schools with the white kids and so forth, because I was comfortable in my school because I felt loved. I was wanted there and I was taught well. And that was not the issue. To me, the issue was having the right to vote and do what you want to do. And now people are redistricting some of these locations and areas so that they can get in office and deny some people the right to vote. And I don't feel that anybody should be denied the right to vote. You should be. Everybody should be given an equal opportunity. But however, we know that in America, there's a lot of hypocrisy. And if you want to vote, you should vote. However, I would say just do some due diligence and make sure you try to vote for someone that's going to benefit your narrative and help your community, because right now as Black people we are at the bottom economically. However, we do have they said $1.6 trillion last year running through the hands of Black people, but it's how we're spending our money, and that's something we need to uh, take hold of, on how we're spending. And voting, it should be a right to everybody to be able to exercise that voting right. I voted and happy I did. So
well,
that's all I have to say about voting. Actually, that's my perspective on it.
yeah, and there's other races going on. Again, there's celebrities. Look like more celebrities are coming out. You have in Pennsylvania, you have uh, Fetterman going against Dr. Mehmet Oz, who was uh, looked upon as America's favorite doctor. Um, this is a man that never, I guess he just moved to Pennsylvania. He's never been a lifelong resident. And I think that's been the big gripe with people in Pennsylvania, that he hasn't been a resident of Pennsylvania. And also, he's gotten a lot of criticism for because of his stroke that he had. So we're going to see how that pans out. Remember, Dr. Oz is the same person that says when he gets home, he's not Dr. Oz, he's Mr. Oz.
He sure did.
Mr. Oz, and he told the whole world that he was not going to allow. No, he said his wife told him
His wife.
that his wife told him that he's not going to allow their children to get inoculated.
Yep.
And
He said that. I
he
heard
stood
him.
by it. And this was almost 10 years ago, and he stood by it after all this time because his wife is a natural health advocate. I do know that. She's been to the Health Freedom Expo, as I have. So she's all about natural health. Dr. Oz, maybe not so much. I think that's why he's getting a lot of flack. But we'll see how that turns out. Florida has races going on. Governor DeSantis against former Governor Charlie Crist, which people are looking at. Here in California, Gavin Newsom, it kind of looks like he's going to keep his governorship against
It's likely.
Brian Brian Dolly, which is his opponent for governorship. So it's a lot of things going on in politics. I think the big one is going to be for the one in Georgia. I think that's the one everyone's looking at. But quite honestly, um, even if Georgia stays Democratic, how is that going to benefit us? Because if you have a black governor, black senator, what's going to be the effect, and how is that going to benefit black people as a culture? And is that message going to spread throughout the entire country? That kind of remains to be seen.
Also, did you mention Oprah uh, um, endorsed Fetterman? Is that his name in Pennsylvania? The
Yes, I did hear about that. I did hear about
Yeah,
that, which is kind of
yeah,
surprising to
and
me.
well, yeah, I don't know because with her thinking back to when President Obama, ex-President Obama was running, how she was then, I really wasn't surprised. But I recall hearing today that she was getting flack from Kid Rock. Is that his name, Kid Rock?
Yeah.
Because of her endorsing Fetterman rather than Dr. Oz, because he's her friend. And they were talking about it on the Breakfast Club. And I'm saying, I know one of them, DJ Envy, was saying, well, he's her friend. She should go with the friendship. And I mean, why would you vote for somebody
Agree.
just because friendship? That doesn't make sense to me. And I said I was done with the voting, but I just thought about that because I mean, what do you have a brain for if you can't use your own critical thinking skills to vote for somebody that you feel is going to be a better candidate
Right.
for the American people, the citizens of America? So why vote for somebody just on friendship? I would never do that. And I know I've had some of my friends to tell me about this voting when we talk about me being an independent, which I've been for over 30 years now, and they're still Democrats and still same old votes for the same old people that do nothing for them and to benefit them. And I mean, I don't get upset with them because of who they vote for, but I know I have a brain here and I know I'm not going to vote for somebody just because they're my friend. No. And I don't feel anybody should do that. The friendship should have nothing to do with your independent thinking when it comes to who you're going to vote for. You should do your due diligence and check the person out, what their views are, how will it benefit you, your community, or you and the uh, public at large. That's what I look at when I cast my vote. I don't just vote to be voting. and and most black people seem to vote to be voting for a Democrat, no matter
Yeah.
who, and because they're black sometimes. And I mean, that's ridiculous to me. So
And I
anyhow,
think I think it's crippled us when we've been doing that since probably what the 70s, 80s. We're talking the Jesse Jackson era
a
when
long
he ran for
time.
president back in 1984. And again, we're still in the same position. So
Yep,
what's the definition of insanity? You doing the same things over and over again, expecting a
with
different
the
result.
same results. Yep,
So
and we've been getting the same results.
so we need to start doing something different. I'm going to move
Uh,
on to some other topics that actually are more important to me. I want to talk about two things, actually, um, two documentaries, actually, that are kind of at the forefront of uh, national controversy. The documentaries aren't really in question. It's the two people that promoted the documentaries. But I want to specifically talk about the documentaries because um, the documentaries, it's always about kill the messenger versus looking at the message. And
right.
so there's two documentaries that I want to bring to the forefront. The first one is a documentary that's kind of caused a little bit of controversy. It's a documentary by Candace Owens. It's called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. And it's a documentary based on the death or murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter organization or the Black Lives Matter movement, but specifically the organization, Black Lives Matter as an organization, as it relates to George Floyd and his death. Now, I got a chance to watch the documentary over the weekend. It was brought up during Kanye West's visit to Drink Champs, which now is probably, we're talking almost 3 weeks now since he brought up the topic. He mentioned the documentary. He mentioned the name Candace Owens, which, you know, for many people, that name automatically triggers an emotion. Candace Owens is a Black woman who has some different opinions about many different topics, and this specific one is about George Floyd. She's been very vocal about the Black Lives Matter organization. And Kanye West got a lot of flack for just mentioning an opinion about his assessment of the documentary. An opinion. But because his opinion didn't coincide with the standard narrative, now we have controversy. And what is controversy? Controversy is the media telling the masses to stay away from something. So when the television tells me to stay away from something and tells you to stay away from something over and over and over and over and over again, typically there has to be some kind of meat and potatoes behind it. So I took it upon myself to watch the documentary in its entirety. And to be honest, I kind of see where she was going with the documentary and the message she was trying to bring. I think the overall message is that the Black Lives Matter organization hasn't been using their money as honestly as they've been telling us, the public. I think that's the general premise of the entire documentary. Whether people disagree with the commentary of who she interviewed for the documentary, that could be questioned. But however, I don't see anybody wanting to cancel Candace Owens and her documentary. I don't see anybody suing any of the people that were a part of the documentary. She has some legitimate people that she questioned, people that you can go and look up. And whether you agree with her position or not, as Black people, I think we should question where the money is going. And if it's going to organizations that benefit the preservation of Black life, or preserving or possibly putting money into changing policies. We hear about how Black people want to defund the police. Well, why would we want to do that? I believe that police need to be paid more.
Yes.
Not to be defunded. That would be an insane thing to do. We don't need to defund the police, because once you defund the police, that creates for them to become bigger criminals. I think police officers, once you pay them more, then will give them less incentive to want to do dirty work.
And vet them more, maybe.
And vet more, yes. Yes, because a lot of police officers are thugs. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, this is the reason why many police departments are under investigation. Just like right here in Los Angeles, the entire Los Angeles Police Department is under investigation for police gangs.
Right.
And the sheriff, his seat is up for grabs too right now. And he's been getting a lot of flack for some of the things that he's been saying about covering up the activities of his police officers. And so just little things like that we see with the police and with Black Lives Matter as an organization. So I think that watching the documentary, I think it should be something that we do question. Where's all that money going? No one's questioned her pulling up those IRS records on all the money that Black Lives Matter as an organization has made. We're talking about what, $80 million? And where is that money going? According to that documentary, it's going to multiple organizations that have nothing to do with stopping police brutality of Black people or Latin people or any people of color. I challenge any Black person to go watch the documentary with an open mind and be as objective as possible. Whether you agree with Candace Owens or not, that's irrelevant. What is the Black Lives Matter organization doing for us as a culture? Why are Black people still being shot up? Why are all these hip hop artists being shot up? Why are so many people getting robbed and maimed still? Black people are going and robbing jewelry stores by the dozens on camera. Like it's just the thing to do. Every day it's a daily activity. So where is all this money going? And why aren't we questioning it? Because Candace Owens did the documentary. That's why we're not questioning it. Because it seems like many Black people have a gripe with Candace Owens because one, because she's married to a Caucasian man. I think that may be part of it. And possibly because maybe some of her opinions may not be parallel with some of the narratives of Black people. But if you kind of step outside and kind of listen, you might get something, even if it's a little bit out of her opinions. Not that you have to agree with everything, but when it comes to this documentary, I think she brings some valid points to the table. What do you say?
I watched the documentary as well, and I've seen Candace Owens. In fact, she's Crystal's age. My daughter and your sister, they're about the same age, 30. So she's a millennial.
Yep.
And I don't disagree with everything she says. However, when I hear her on certain things, she's being a bit hypocritical with her narrative in how she comes across in what she says. And she just comes with a lot of stuff off the top of her head. And she hasn't done even any due diligence on it herself in terms of her thinking. And she's throwing information out. And I'm saying, where did she get that one from? Because I know that one's not true. But in the documentary, I watched it, she starts out with the way she ends and the way she starts, it seems to me is a bit hypocritical because she's saying that in the beginning, it's like, oh, well, I hope his family gets the justice they deserve. And I hope, what's the man's name that killed George Floyd?
Yeah, Derek Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin, that he gets what he deserves, something to that. Her narrative in the beginning doesn't fit the narrative in the end, because in the end, it's as if she's blaming George Floyd's death on fentanyl. Is that how you pronounce it? I believe it's fentanyl.
Yeah,
fentanyl,
fentanyl.
Yeah. Fentanyl.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. How is she going to come to that conclusion? And the thing is, I know you talked to all these people you had on here, and you went out with Kanye West and you wore the White Lives Matter shirt, and everybody's life should matter. But when you talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, I have no issues with that. The Black Lives Matter organization, I have an issue with that, because when they first started out, I remember going on their website. It's been a while. And from what I saw initially on the website, since they've been getting all this flack, their core values and their mission statement seems to have changed. Because, and I read it the first time, I didn't do a copy of it, anything, but I read it and it seems to have changed. And I'm saying, now that they're getting all this flack, because their initial agenda and core values and mission statement, the priority was not on Black people in our culture. No, their priorities seem to have been more on this gender thing, the LGBTQ community and other issues, as opposed, it seems like the Black Lives Matter movement per se, not the organization, that was seems to be appeared to be, based on what I was reading on their website initially, was the last thing on their agenda of what really wasn't their true narrative. So they came off and took all this money from people, not from me, because I didn't give them any of mine. Because what I read about them, I said, these people are not legitimate. They're not being honest with the public, and they're taking in all this money. And I heard that it was this white billionaire backing them. And so that gave me suspicion as well, because I'm saying, what is, whoever this person is, what is his intent? So I started looking into that. And when Candace Owens did this documentary, I'm saying, what is her agenda? Where is she coming from? Because she starts off, and it appears that she has good intentions, but she ends, it seems like she's just thrown George Floyd and his family to the wolves and saying he didn't die because of Chauvin having his knee on his neck. And who
Yeah.
is she to say that? Because if he hadn't had his knee on his neck and the man had died from just sitting there being high on fentanyl, then we could say what she was saying. So she had an agenda and a narrative, the way she started and ended that. And and some of the other stuff I've seen her and heard her talk about, she just throws stuff out there sometimes. Just throw it at the wall, whatever sticks, and whoever believes what I'm saying, it's okay. And in that sense, no, I don't buy into what she's talking about all the time. But some of the issues she says, I agree about the health and so forth, how we should be looking at our health. I agree with her on that. But and who she's married to, I really don't care who she's married to. But don't come with me with your hypocrisy and think that I'm going to buy into it, because you don't know what you're talking about, Candace Owens, in many instances, and you just throw some numbers, throw some statistics out, and you don't back it up with anything. And that's hypocrisy on your part. And if your base believe you and they want to buy into what you're saying, we're supposed to have freedom of speech. So it's okay for me to agree to disagree with a lot of the stuff that you are spewing out here. And then my other part to that documentary is that the family said they're going to sue Kanye West, I believe, for $250 million. And I understand that he donated, I believe they said a couple of million. I think he said it to their family. But he didn't make the documentary, nor did he make the statement. He merely said, from what I heard him say, is that what he said was based on what he saw in the documentary, like what everybody else saw and that's watched the documentary. So if you're going to sue him, why are you not suing Candace Owens? Yep. She's the one that created the documentary and it's her creation. So why do we pick certain people to go after? There is definitely an agenda there for you to pick certain people that you're going to go after. And I feel for George Floyd's family. However, I believe if you're going to go after Kanye for saying something that he said he saw in a documentary, because I saw it in the documentary too. I don't remember him saying he agreed with that, right, but he said he saw it. Now, so how you going to sue somebody just because we're sitting here talking about what we saw in the documentary? And I'm saying I don't agree with what she said about that family, because if that man hadn't had his knee on George Floyd's neck, who's to say that he would have died of a drug overdose, as she's trying to say? And I don't agree with that. He died because, and we looked at it with our own eyes. How you going to hold your knee on somebody and strangle them for what, almost 10 minutes, and they're not going to die? A lot of this stuff is common sense, and some of us just don't use common sense. So if you're going to go after him, you need to be going after the person that wrote or created the documentary that she said the greatest lie ever sold. So
Well, yeah, and she put her name on it. I don't see anybody else putting their name up and on the line to be up for criticism, because
absolutely,
she's not above her movie being criticized. So yeah, she should be at the forefront too. I mean, it's her creation. She did all the did all the interviews, decided who she was going to interview, when they were going to be interviewed, and she has her own assessment and her own opinions about what happened in the court trial and all this. So if I'm going to make an opinion about what I saw, why am I being sued? Why would I be sued over an opinion? $250
absolutely,
million over an opinion, over an opinion in America, and another black man at that.
absolutely. This all of this stuff appears to me, and I'm saying this because I have a black husband, I have black sons. It appears to me to be and plus black women have suffered the same atrocities in this country. I know I have, on jobs, in housing, education, and I've seen a lot, experienced a lot, and I can say from my own personal experience, this is an anti-Black movement that has been going on since slavery. And because it's bigger than the documentaries that you're going to talk about. It's bigger than this one that Candace, and I haven't heard anybody that said, told her to shut up and stop
Oh,
talking about her documentaries or anything. I haven't heard anybody to tell her that you need to take that down now, Candace Owens. Take it down, because you're out here saying that George Floyd, in essence, based on your documentary, that he died of that drug overdose. And that's what I got from the documentary. And we'll get to the other one, but I haven't heard anybody tell her. And I don't know whether it's because of who she's married to, the circle she runs in, or what. But I have my speculations on it. And it appears that there is something going on there, because nobody has asked her and nobody has suing
nobody's
her,
even
from what I
questioned it.
understand. No, they haven't questioned. And also, I heard something about her. She's gonna sue somebody. I think they were talking about she's gonna sue somebody. So it's just, this whole country is divided. It's in a crisis in every aspect. And it seems like everything when it comes to us, it's always targeted. We're always targeted, the biggest target of anything, any controversy that comes out that has anything to do with us. It's like we are the ones that these powers that may be will target. And I am sick of it, for one thing, because I know what I have experienced. And when I heard our Vice President Kamala Harris, and I believe Senator, his name is Tim Scott, I can't remember what state he's from, when they did the whatever they do,
South
rebuttal,
Carolina.
they do the right. Okay, so I don't know.
I think
I
it's
think
South
you're right.
Carolina.
I think you're right. When
Senator
they
Tim
did the
Scott.
rebuttal, Tim Scott and Kamala Harris, our president. Oh no, America's not a racist country. I beg to disagree with that too, because I know what I've gone through on jobs, because I spoke out about the discriminatory practices on these jobs and let them know in no uncertain terms, I'm going to give you exceptional work no matter what you do to me, because I have integrity. So I will give you exceptional work. However, I'm not coming on your job and allow you to treat me like a second-class citizen just because I work for you, because there is supposed to be a justice system that is supposed to protect my human rights. I don't care who I work for. And that was one of the reasons that I was going to go to law school, because I love law. And I was going to go to law school, and I was going to become a civil rights attorney, because I've seen all of the injustices growing up as a child in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I've seen it in California. I've seen it in Texas because those are the only places I've lived. So I can attest to that. These are my own experiences. And I had to go in pro per in California and fight my own case against the County of Los Angeles because I did not have access or budget to hire an attorney. And I won my case because I said, I refuse to be treated like a second-class citizen and passed over for promotions. And you see white people walking around, not even qualified for jobs and threatening in your face. Lady, I should have got that job. That's what I was told. I went out and shot up a bunch of ducks this weekend and didn't even pass the test, but on the mere basis and premise that you're white. And when we hear people like our Vice President, Kamala Harris, Tim Scott, who is also married to a white woman, and we know who our vice president is married to, and I don't care who you're married to. I just want you to be fair-minded when you're supposed to be serving the public. And to say America is not racist, that's a flaw because too many people have experienced it and the atrocity of slavery. And you're going to make a statement like that? And Candace Owens said she's never been enslaved. So she's not buying into, I guess, racism as well. However, she didn't have a problem when she was in high school and she filed a lawsuit with the help of the NAACP because she said she was under attack by some white kids in the high school and she got paid from what I understand. So when I hear these people talk out of both sides of their mouth and knowing at 72, the narratives and all the experiences of racism that I have gone through, I just look at them, many of my people waking up and understanding and speaking up and standing up. And I always keep my cup here where I say, speak up.
Speak up and speak out, huh?
And speak out. I don't have speak out on it. I'm gonna have to find another cup that has speak out because that one says speak up. And we have to stand up and do our due diligence too. And I'm not gonna defend Black people that have all this inappropriate behavior because some of us have some atrocious behavior. And I'm saying, why are we going I don't stand up for those type of Black people because if your behavior, you're out here assisting with the narrative, I'm not going to speak up for you. Killing another Black person for no reason, just killing them, like the young man I had on my show, Sylvester Gilmer, shot by a drive-by in Minnesota and paralyzed in a wheelchair. And we don't know whether it'll be the rest of his life because I pray to God that it won't. And we just got to bring some more love to this country. This country is screwed up badly. It's pitiful. So I don't have a problem speaking out about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something that it needs to be spoken, and it needs to be spoken. The dialogue definitely needs to happen, and we can't be fearful of having the dialogue for fear that someone or a group of people may be offended by the language or, again, the opinions that may not sit with the mainstream narrative.